Okay. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Exit Realty West Midtown Presents. And today we are doing financial fitness, and we have with us Peggy Barrett and Joe Barrett. And Peggy, the wonderful Peggy,
So I've been told. Not really.
actually spent 28 years with the Broward County Meals on Wheels and the
Mhm.
Meals on Wheels Association of America. And in her role, she actually spent time and with the company and made her way to CEO. Then Peggy transitioned her career to financial services industry after she moved to Georgia, and she became a financial advisor. And she holds life and health insurance as licenses, as well as Series 6, 63, and 65 licenses. And Peggy's goal is to put Meals on Wheels out of business. That's a fabulous goal. And so her
Respectfully.
yes, it's a fabulous goal. And so she wants to make sure that we all have a financial plan. And so we are happy to have Peggy here with us to talk about this topic. And then Joe, who is her better half, or shall I say other half?
I definitely
uh,
wouldn't say better.
Joe is the better half, and he has over 40 years experience in, you know, in the computer industry, and he has been an entrepreneur and started new companies, and he is has a life of customer service. So his goal is to he has a life calling around customer service and his ability to resolve business issues and resolve technical challenges for his clients. That has been his gift. So we welcome them and we thank you guys for both coming in, volunteering, and sharing this information. And so we will give the floor to Peggy, I believe. And before Peggy starts, I want to say that Dominique is on the line. And if you guys have any questions, you can pop those in chat. He will be monitoring the chat on behalf of Peggy and Joe, and he can answer some of the questions along the way. And so feel free to just pop your questions in there as we make our way through the presentation. Thank you so much. Peggy?
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. And again, thank you for allowing us to be here to kind of walk you through what we do and why we do it. As you said, I ran the Meals on Wheels program in South Florida for many, many, many years. Saw lots of people who did not have any intention of ever being on Meals on Wheels. And so when I retired from there, starting to look for a second career, I found it here because it was something that I could totally know. So you can teach an old dog new tricks, but also be able to help people understand how money works. Because if I had known that personally, I knew it business wise, but personally, we don't get told this stuff. And so both Joe and I are kind of on a mission to educate as many people as we can. And I'm quite happy if it's one person who doesn't have to go to Meals on Wheels by the time they hit 65 or 70. So as we do that, let's just kind of jump into why are we here in addition. So, there's several problems that we see facing people in America. And these stresses have to do with um, the new thought process, really, of you got to plan your own future. Most of us don't have a pension. Most of us are kind of on the ledge about Social Security. Is it going to be there? Is it going to be enough? It was never intended to be the primary source of your retirement income. But when you think and read some of the statistics, most people are retiring with about $211,000 in their 401k. That is not going to last long enough as we age more gracefully now than we did in the future. And so as we have collectively started to take a little bit better care of ourselves, this problem becomes exponential going forward. So as we talk about what the stresses really are, we're looking at a couple of simple things to a degree, but the very basic is most people don't have $400 in a bank account. And if they do, that is the difference between them surviving for a little bit longer and being totally financially on the rocks. People need more than that saved. Only 29% of Americans think that they're financially healthy. And I don't know what that necessarily means to them. It could be debt-free. It could be a substantial amount of money in the market or in their investments or whatever. But Forbes is now, or New York Times is now warning us that while bankruptcies have been at an all-time low, the reality is they think that's going to change in the near future because of the pandemic. And you now have rising inflation, rising prices in a lot of places, which goes along with the inflation. You know, at the end of the day, who pays that money back to the government spending? Now, the government is us. We are the ones that they're going to come looking for that money for. So as we talk about these stresses, there are really two sides to financial stability, financial planning, however you want to look at this. We have families that are surviving and we have families that are thriving. And the difference really is that when you're surviving, you're living paycheck to paycheck. You're kind of on the edge, but you're right there. You hopefully have a job, maybe a 401k, maybe you own your own life insurance, term or whatever. But most people are renting a house. They're trying to put money in the bank, but it doesn't stay very long. Most have no advisor and no financial plan. And that is pretty much 95% of the population in this country. The financially thriving families own things. They own a business. They own permanent life insurance. They own a home. They have a financial professional that's working with them. And they're also taking advantage of some tax codes that the rest of us really don't know about. We were not taught money in school. We weren't taught how money works in school. When I did budgeting for my degree, the budgeting was getting to zero. And that was the goal. Spend it all. Don't save it. Don't put it anywhere else. Zero-based budgeting. And so as we look at our new career here and our new transition into trying to help people get from where they are to where they want to be, we want people to understand that most people don't plan to fail. They just fail to plan. And that's where we can come in and help. So the stresses become a solution through FinFit is that what FinFit is doing is unique to the business market. And what it's doing is it's combining financial fitness with physical fitness. And Joe's going to talk more about the physical fitness piece later on. But we're not talking about going out and doing a triathlon or whatever. What we're doing is looking at how do we help simple people like you and me get to where the wealthy people are. So we do this by using financial education as the foundation. The 4 or 5 pillars here talk about how do we help you grow money? How do we help keep it safe? How do we protect what you own, owe, and those you love? How do you take advantage of the tax codes that the wealthy are using? And then how do we help you understand that health and wellness is not about becoming a triathlete? Some of the stumbling blocks around financial fitness are time. You know, we all think we're immortal. We're all going to live forever. So we don't really think about the idea that, oh my God, what happened to all the years behind me already? We need time to grow those assets. We need to start saving sooner. There isn't one person that I haven't talked to that's over 50 who says, oh, I saved more than I needed to. No. I didn't start saving soon enough. Okay. Now it's about growth. How do we grow the money that you are saving, but how do we stay ahead of inflation? Up until this year, that's not been too difficult because our inflation rate was around 1.5 to 3, depending upon which you look at. But now we're pushing 8%. And how do you stay ahead of inflation in a market that's pushing 8% inflation rates? Safety, how do we help your investments get protected against loss? How do we put a downside market protection that saves the money you're saving, but protects it going forward? And again, how do we help you take advantage of the tax advantages? But how do we also work with people to help them improve their wellness and health? Okay, it's all about protection and habits on both sides of this conversation. So as I walk through the financial side, we're looking at teaching people how money works. And this is the basic concept right here. The rule of 72 says, if I take 72 and divide it by the percentage interest I'm earning on an investment, that's the number of years it's going to take that money to double. And the goal is to win the double game. So if I'm putting $10,000 away at 26 and I'm getting 4%, that is going to double every 18 years. So by the time I'm 62, it's only doubled 3 times. Okay. If I can get 6, it's going to double every 12. And if I can get 10, it's going to double every 7.2. And that's the goal. Because wouldn't you rather have $320,000 at 62 rather than 40? Warren Buffett makes a conversation about his rules of money. Rule number 1, don't lose money. Rule number 2, don't forget rule number 1. Overcoming losses is one of the most difficult pieces of financial planning. Because if you're losing money, you've got to have time to get back to where you were before the loss started to actually start growing again. Now, as you look at this chart, you're looking at 10, 20, 30, 40, 50%. Most people remember 2009 when the housing market crashed. Most people lost 48 to 50% of what they had saved in their 401s or whatever kind of investments they had that were in the stock market investment field. It takes 100% to get back to even. I don't know if you've heard of the phrase, the lost decade. The lost decade is the amount of time it took for people in 2009 to regain their 2009 level in order to start building again. It took 10 years to recover. So if you're planning to retire in 2009, the market crashes, you don't have 10 years to recoup. What are you going to do? That's where we can come in with some of the concepts that we talk about in terms of protecting money. The delay between Joe and I and what's going on here. Okay, so well, the next piece of money is there's 3 ways that you can invest your money. Now, these are relatively broad, but they pretty much work the same. Fixed. You get an interest rate, you know what it is, you put money in a savings account or an investment, it's a fixed rate. By the time you take it out, you know exactly what it's going to be. You're talking about savings accounts, you're looking at certificates of deposit, you're looking at money markets, anything that gives you a straight interest rate. And then you have variable. Variable goes up and down with what the stock market's doing. Whatever Wall Street's doing, that's what these monies are doing. And you're looking at your 401ks, your IRAs, things like that, where and stocks and mutual funds where you've got money, what we call in the market, exposed to the ups and downs of the market. And then you have indexed. And this is where Joe and I got very excited about really diving into financial planning, was because we'd never heard of this concept before. Indexing says, I'm going to look at a type of product that will provide a stop loss prevention, a stop loss. So as my money's going up, if you see in that gray, you see a gray line that matches the variable. So as my money is in an index, which is the black line now, it's going up with the stock market goes, it locks in. So I'm not losing anything. So I don't have to regain what I'm losing because I'm not losing anything. It's just going to stay there until the market starts going again, and then my money goes up, right? So if my retirement is in some indexed accounts, the benefit to me is that it's going to be protected, that I am not going to lose a lot of money and need a lot of time to come back at growing that money again. Here's a good graphic of showing you how the power of indexing works. And we're just talking about, this is a 20-year period, which all your investments are going to doing what they call a look back over a 20-year period to see where the market went, because that's all we can do. We can only look back to see where it went. If we knew what the future was going to be, we'd all be multimillionaires or billionaires, but we don't. So what they look at is a 20-year look back. So this one goes from 99 to 2019. And as you see, you have the blue line is your S&P return. So basically your stock market return, up and down across that time frame, right? At the end of it, you gained back. You started with 1,000. After 20 years, you got about 2,200. And what did you do? You doubled it once. Okay. If you take the black line, you're looking at a fixed account. Whatever the interest rate is, you know what it's going to be. In this example, they use 2%. You start at 1,000, you end at 1,485. Okay, but you knew what it was going to be when you started because they gave you that fixed interest rate. But if you look at the gold line, that is your index conversation. And this is a specific account that actually John Hancock uses, but they all run similar. So you see here in 2002, early 2000s, the recession, right? That was the dot-com. Stock market tanked, the index stopped, right? The money that you have in the index stopped at 1,000. As time went on, you started to gain some more, gain some more, gain some more. You get to 2008, the Great Recession, the housing market crash, you're at 1,500. But as time goes on from 2008 to 2019, you're taking full advantage of the stock market growth. You didn't lose anything, so you're not trying to gain back. And if this was your retirement money, wouldn't you rather have 4,187 than 2,000 or 1,485? And so what we look at is how do we help you understand, A, the concept, but have your money diversified across all.
Hey, Peggy, before we move on to the next topic, we got a nice question from a Miss Lisa Williams, who asked, what is the factor that causes a person to stop losing money when they put it into an indexed account?
That is the way the index works. That is how it is set up. The insurance companies or whoever's using those indexes, what an index does is it looks at a period of time. So S&P 500, the 500 biggest companies in the United States. They look at the values, collective values of those companies at a given point in time. As time goes forward, they call it point to point. So let's say it's a year. So the next year at the same time, they're looking to see what that index, what that growth was or decline. So if it grew 10%, depending upon the account, you're going to get a 10% credit to that money. If it lost 10%, you lose nothing. You just stay where you are. How does it work? It works because the insurance companies are taking on some of that risk. So if, let's say the stock market went up 23%, right? Your particular product, there's a bunch of them, but let's say this product gets capped at 15%. The insurance company is hedging its loss against you going below zero by using that 5%. Does that make sense? Nope. Okay. Let me try again. So if you have a bottom and it's zero, you have a product that says the most you can make in this account is 15%. Okay. So as it goes up and down, it could be 7, it could be 10, it's 15%. Okay. If the stock market in this index happens to go to 20%, you're only going to get 15. Okay, which means the investment company is keeping the 5. And over time, that's what they're using to give you that base.
There's one other aspect of this. An indexed account is mirroring the market. It's not in the market. They're locking the gains because they're mirroring it. They're actually not losing it within the markets. And they're using that 5% gain above the 15 to cover for the 20 or 5 or 10 or 15% loss on the other side.
Okay. Yep, go ahead. She's good. Okay, so third part. Notice we're doing lots of threes here. So 3 ways money's taxed. Taxed now. You're paying on interest, you're on mutual funds, on savings accounts, wherever you're earning money today that's in an open account. We call them exposed. Some people call them naked. They're right there. IRS can come get it. They're going to tell you right now that that money is income to you. Right now, it's going to get taxed. You have tax later. We all kind of are aware of that in 401ks. We're going to put money in a can. We're going to put a lid on it, and nobody can touch it, including the IRS, until such time as we start to take it out. And there are restrictions to when and how you can take that money out. Okay? What we're doing here is kicking the tax bucket down the road. Okay? So we know what the taxes are today. What do you think they're going to be when you decide to retire? Higher? Lower? It's a risk you have to kind of think about. And then you have tax advantage. Most of us know what a Roth IRA is. You're paying the taxes on the money before you put it in the IRA. Once you put it in the IRA as a Roth or a non-qualified for tax purposes income, you put it in there, there's a limit to how much they allow you to put in. But that money is going to grow over time. It is in the stock market as well, so it doesn't have the downside protection, but it's going to grow. When you decide you want to take it out, based on the eligibility and the restrictions that apply to a Roth as well, you can take that money out tax-free if you do it right, okay? And the second part is what we call cash accumulation in an insurance policy. This piece is what I never knew about, and most people I talk to have never heard of this. But let me tell you something, the wealthy people do. They know exactly how this gets used. They've been using them for decades. And what this does is it allows money to grow inside an insurance policy at whatever the rate. Different insurance companies are all different. So it's all growing inside. Again, you've paid the cash in on a after-tax basis, okay? But you are not going to be paying taxes on the growth either as you take it out later on. Again, there are rules, there's ways to do it. You got to do it right so that it doesn't become a taxable event to you. But this is one of the vehicles that is very much in the shadows for the 95% of us, okay? They're long-term, but these are the types of investments that you can have for your money. And when we look at the tax consequences as a financial plan, we're looking to make sure you're diversified across. Because when you hit Social Security age, how many of you are aware that your Social Security can actually be taxed up to 85%? Not too many people do. When I found that out, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. You're making me pay this tax because I don't have an option all my working life. And now you're telling me when I retire, if I'm making too much money, you're going to tax that too again? Yes, they can. And so what we really plan or try to plan for is how to get as much money into those tax advantage accounts as we can so that when you do retire, your tax later account and your tax now account are providing you a basis of income that is going to be below whatever that threshold is that the government puts on. Pretty much right now, I think it's like $45,000 for a single person. If you make more than that out of your tax now and tax advantage, tax later accounts, they can actually tax half part of your Social Security, up to 85%. So when we're doing planning, we're trying to get people more into the tax advantage piece so that you get to keep more of your money, and it's not worrying about what is the tax rate going to be when I decide to retire in 10, 15, 20, 30 years. Okay. All right. So when we talk about doing financial planning, creating a financial fitness plan for you, this is the structure we work with. Defensive planning, making sure that what you're working hard for is protected. What you earn, what you owe, what you own, and most importantly, those that you love. And a lot of people will look at life insurance and say, well, I'm not going to leave my husband or wife, you know, $1 million because they'll just go off with the pool boy and don't have to work again. Not really. How many people have you heard of who have had a parent pass away and then the kids can't go to college? There are so many ways that you can use an insurance policy, and we teach that on an individual basis with clients as well, okay? But that's what we're looking to do. That's the base. Then you get into offensive planning. Offensive means I'm going to say, all right, you know, I know that I want to purchase a house. I know I want to purchase a car. I know something. I need college funding. I need retirement income. What's our time frame? How much do you need to save? What kind of investment categories can we put in for you that will help you get to those goals? If you're a long-term goal like retirement funding, you can actually use that tax advantage cash value life insurance as a retirement supplement if it's set up correctly, okay? You can use that type of plan to turn around and say, you know what, I'm going to save as much money as I can, and I'm going to save for my kids' education. A lot of people will put it in the 529 plan. There are spaces where 529 plan is appropriate, but for most of us, if you could do that in a life insurance policy, it's not an asset to the kids. It's not an asset to you. Your financial financial aid applications don't look at it. You don't even need to tell the kids they got it. You can wait till they graduate and then pay off their loans as a present, okay? And you can do that with a whole bunch of other things. What it does is it starts setting up what we call a personal bank. That you've heard, let's see, infinity banking, family banking, that kind of thing. You're actually saving your own money. When you need it, you can actually take a loan out of this and then pay yourself back versus the bank. Most of your policies, if you leave it within their time frames, those loan costs are zero. Okay? And then we have aggressive planning. This is ways to look at how are we going to stay ahead of inflation? How are we going to reduce risk? But how do we prioritize what you really need when you need it? So it's all about time again. When do you need it and how are we going to get you there? And then progressive planning talks about, okay, so I'm kind of on a path now to have my retirement set, whatever. What do I want to do afterwards? Do I want to leave my family a whole bunch of money? Do I not? Do I want to leave it to a nonprofit? How do we help you set that up so that when you do pass, that your money goes where you want it to go, not to probate attorneys, court systems, and the IRS? And I'll give you one example, and then I'm going to let Joe take over. We have a client in Massachusetts whose father came from Italy, built a huge brick business in New England. When he passed, he had over $40 million. Because there were things that were not set up correctly for him, the kids got, or there was 5 kids, they should have gotten somewhere around $8 million each. They got about 3. So think about how much money went to probate, courts, and taxes because it wasn't set up right to begin with. Any questions for me at this point? All right. Right now, then, I'm going to let this go over to Joe, and he is going to talk about the second half of our company's plan to create a financial and a physical wellness product.
Everybody hear me okay?
I cannot. I can hear you because you're in the room.
Can everybody hear me?
When is it too late to start? Is that a thing? It's too late to start when you're going to go tomorrow. It's never too late to start. There's always ways to start saving money someplace. It's a matter of age and your risk tolerance and where you can put it. I don't think it's ever too late to start.
And Peggy, to kind of go along with that same question, do you find that the planning process and the goals change throughout time for people?
Absolutely. I'm working with some people now that, you know, when we started their plan, things were going really good. Now they got 2 and 3 kids and we need to adjust. But yes, things go on. I have another client who I started with, I think she was 72, literally handed me a box of stuff and said, my husband died. I don't know what's in here. I don't know what I have. I don't know where I can live or how long I can live there. And by the time we were done, it took some time. We were able to sell her house. We were able to sell a piece of property she had in South Florida. And we're able to put money aside into the heck was that? I'm sorry. Into an account that would pay her out over time. Okay. Now we are 3 years down the road, and we know what the stock market's been doing. So now it's a matter of going back and looking at where she's at now and what adjustments do we need to make this money last longer.
Cool.
Good question.
Can anybody hear me now? Awesome. So I'm actually going to share something on a personal nature, and you understand, hopefully you'll understand why this is, number one, so important, but number two, why this process matters. I had I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've built and sold a couple of businesses. I was married before, and my previous wife died of pancreatic cancer in 2010. I had a financial guy. I had a referral from my accountant, and he had been my person for 3 businesses and, you know, probably 15 years. So when you have a guy, right, gal, whatever it may be, you automatically trust, and it's not what you do, so you believe and you follow their advice. And when Deirdre died, um, I called him after the death and said, okay, so what's the process? What do I need to do? And he says, swear to God, you don't need to do anything. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, she wasn't insured because you made most of the money. So here's the reality. You don't know what you don't know because nobody has ever taught us. Nobody's ever explained it to us. Nobody's ever shown us the holes in our plan. And one of the reasons we chose the company we're at here is because we go through the process in such a way that we look for a completeness of the plan, whether you had something from somebody else or you have, if you have a perfect plan, it'll be awesome. We tell you you have a perfect plan. But the reality is almost everybody we talk to has a hole in their plan. I was one of those. Okay. And at the end of the day, I had the money to pay. I could bury her. We could do all the things we needed to do. But I will tell you, it would have been a whole lot easier on me and everybody around me if we were taken care of properly. But because this particular individual didn't get compensated for the types of things that we needed to do, he chose not to do them. That's bad business, right? That's horrible situation to be in. That's one of the reasons that there are, not the only reason, but it's one of the reasons there are so many GoFundMe's to bury people. People don't know what holes they have in a plan. People don't even know if they have a plan, quite honestly. So that's one side of it. The second side of it is if you think about financial situations, how many people have filed for bankruptcy? Most bankruptcies come from medical. So her last 5 days in ICU was $250,000. What happens if I didn't have insurance? You end up in a medical bankruptcy situation. What happens if you needed more money? If I would have had one of the particular policies or plans that Peggy was talking about, I could have taken money from that plan based on her situation and been able to do the things that I needed to do. So those products that we were talking about not only have the financial and the tax benefits, they also have the life living benefits, some death benefits, and some long-term care benefits that don't exist in other products. So they're more of a Swiss Army knife product where you can kind of solve several problems. And I'll give you one more example, or actually two more. I was literally one of those 401k babies that turned into a 201k because I was in the market in a 401k and my 400,000 went down to 200,000 because we lost almost 50%. So when you look at the reality of the situation is it happens to all of us, no matter how smart you are. I was a business owner. I built multiple businesses. I sold multiple businesses, but it still happened to me, right? So we got to ask ourselves, who do we trust? And do we always get a second opinion? And the answer is always. If you had a medical emergency, I just had cancer last year. If I didn't have a defensive plan, i.e. protection, I wouldn't be able to get insurance right now. But because I had it and I happen to have medical insurance, I got $100,000 bill for 1 day in the hospital for surgery, right? So we all have things that happen to us. I just happen to be a living example of most, right? And so what we want to do is make sure those things are taken care of, not only in the financial side, but also in the health side. So I'm going to go into that now. So when we start looking at the family in distress, the one side obviously is financial. The second side is health. We look at, less than 5% of adults participate in 30 minutes of physical activity a day. It's kind of scary that we do that. It's 1.5 million Americans are diagnosed with diabetes every year. That number is growing every year and quite honestly is leading to long-term issues for across the board. And then actually the Military Times called the American diet a national security threat. And they base that on the fact that if we had to defend ourselves as a country, they're not convinced we could, based on the fact that we can't even do 30 minutes of activity, never mind fight a war. So it's really kind of frightening when we start to think about those as global issues, not only just in the US, but think about those same problems. Oh, by the way, are worldwide. Not in every community, but a lot of them. So when we start to look at the physical fitness deal, it's really about, we start obviously with a basis of nutrition, because that lays the foundation for everything, right? Our DNA, everything is fed off of that mindset of nutrition. And if you look at nutrition, habits typically drive what we eat. I was a service guy for many, many years. I was in my car for half the day. I drove through drive-throughs for most of my life. And at the end of the day, the nutrition value of what we do has a huge effect on what happens to you in your body. So we need to make better choices about nutrition, but we also need to have help making those choices. And most people have not had help in that in the past. We want to look at metabolic conditioning, i.e. cardio. We need to walk. We need to get physical activity, get your heart up and get your heart rate up and get your lung capacity up. If you look at the pandemic, what was the pandemic focused mostly on people that had heart and or lung capacity issues, were some of the first people that were subject to the symptoms of the pandemic. So we all need to make sure that we have our cardio in place. We've got our we got our heart capacity up. We got our lung capacity up. Even if it's only walking, there's benefits to walking that I'll share with you in a little bit, that are amazing. You would have never guessed, and I promise you, I didn't know it either.
Hey, Joe, we got
Yes.
a question for the
Sure.
group today. From Lisa Williams again. When you have a client, how do you work on their mindset about these issues? Because as we know, mindset is everything.
Well, it starts with education, right? We walk them through the understanding of the plan, number one, but we actually have some products and services that will show them what we do. And if you let me get a little bit farther, and I'll kind of come back to that, because it's actually part of one of the other slides, if that's okay. So flexibility and balance. So I don't know about you, but I'm not the most flexible person in the world. I grew up playing sports. I played ice hockey for 30 years. Um, the issue we all have is we all played like we were, 10-year-olds, and we never stopped, and now our bodies are paying for that forever. And so it's more important today to make sure you have flexibility, and have balance than it is ever before, because that leads to everything. If you don't have flexibility and balance, you're typically not going to have your cardio, because if you can't walk without falling down, you're not going to do the exercise. So those kind of things all go hand in hand, but they're vital to do it. And we actually have workouts that you can do in 7 minutes that'll cover most of these areas. And if you did that on a daily basis, you literally would see that in a month, there is a huge change in how you feel, how sore you are, and how active you want to be mentally and physically. It's really an amazing thing, when you actually get your body moving, your heart moves, your lungs move, and it really helps your mind, and your mental state is part of that process. If we talk about the implications of living longer in poor health, it's really kind of frightening. If you go back to when pensions stopped, right? If we look at the old days, the United Auto Workers, or the pilots associations, all those, they all had those big pensions, right? That's where everybody wanted to be. Most of that risk has been returned to the employee, and that's when 401ks were designed. And I'm not going to go into a big conversation about 401ks, but if you want to look at a 401k, the people who designed them are now looking back at it and going, God, we didn't do a really good job at that. It doesn't meet the need. But it is the tool that most people have access to, because the risk was moved off the company back to the employees in most cases. So when we look at that, we've got a couple of conditions that are really a problem. Most people save for retirement, whatever that is. Peggy told you there's a statistic of about $211,000 in savings for most people for their retirement. At the end of the day, that's not enough. But what happens if not only is it 211 not enough for what I used to live? What if I'm living 5 to 10 years longer now? That's a bigger problem because I'm going to have less money for a longer period of time, right? Then I've got health causing issues as I get older, right? The older I get, the more health issues I have, specifically if I'm not taking care of myself and I'm not eating well and I'm not getting the exercise and the mental stimulation I need. I'm literally getting into those scenarios. So then I have the national program, Social Security. Social Security has been dwindling down for years for a number of reasons. When the baby boomers, I'm one of those, right? My wife and I are. We used to put into it. When we were putting into it, there was probably, for every 30 or so that we're putting in, there was only 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 taken out. Those numbers have almost completely reversed today. There's 10,000 plus people a day turning 65. So the number of people going after Social Security has really affected the retirement side of that. So let me ask you a question when you think about retirement. If everybody's been in a Walmart, I'm guessing. Do you think the seniors that are greeting people and working the registers and walking around are there because they want to be there? Or do you think they got caught up in the dilemma of not enough money at retirement and I need to do something because I don't have enough from Social Security? I'd be willing to bet it's because their plan didn't work or they failed to plan. But it's more because we didn't, excuse me, more because we didn't educate them and we didn't help them plan. And I think the benefit again of us and what we do is we all start with education. Everybody needs to understand the basics. Everybody needs to understand not only the financial basics, but how we deal with health and why and the benefits of it. So if I look at the healthcare system is amazing. Think about this. If we had any of the diseases we have today, 50 years ago, we wouldn't be here, right? But the likelihood that our illnesses are going to increase is absolutely a fact. The longer we live, the more disease we have. The worse we eat, the more disease we have. Our lifespans are continuing to increase, but the burden we're putting on the healthcare system, both public and private, is really exponential. So let's just throw out some just generic numbers. We talked about one already. There's 1.5 million new diabetes cases per year. There's 6.2 million people 65 and over that are living with Alzheimer's. And oh, by the way, most of those people don't die from Alzheimer's. They die from complications of Alzheimer's, right? Maybe heart, it may be something else, but they don't die from Alzheimer's. They typically live a fairly long life. 5.6 of those people developed it actually before, 5 to 6% of it, excuse me, developed it before age of 65. I know somebody who got it when they were in the 40s. It's horrifying, but it's a fact and it's happening. Again, we don't know whether it's nutrition, it's chemicals. We have no idea what's causing it, but we need to understand it's there. If we look at cancer, just some basic statistics. Under 20, there's 1% of those people that have cancer. Between ages 20 and 34, it's 3%. Between 35 and 44, it's 5%. Between 45 and 54, it's 14%. Between 55 and 64, it's 24%. Between 65 and 74, it's 25%. 75 to 84, 20%. And 85 plus, it's 8%. Well, guess what? We're all getting older. If those numbers bear out, guess how many of us are going to be in the situation of putting a burden on that healthcare system? If you look at the pandemic, you look at how hospitals have had to deal with the situation. I had surgery, cancer surgery, in the middle of a pandemic. We got to the hospital. I was in the waiting room for 90% of my stay in the hospital, in the recovery room, because they didn't have any beds. The system isn't structured to support that kind of issue. So we need to figure out a better way to live healthier and reduce our number of sick years versus our number of healthy years. If we look at our productivity, it really comes down to look at the pandemic. I mean, we have the extreme example of what happens with productivity. People panic, people quit their jobs, people only work part-time. People work from home. All of those things happen. We actually have become really productive working remotely, but that's taken a long time to get there. Most people weren't prepared to do it initially. So we need to make sure that we've got the systems, the tools, and the resources in place to make sure that the workforce can continue. Because if we don't, we end up with the other side of that, which is we're funding people not being able to work with checks yearly, weekly, monthly, whatever they may be from the government. And guess who pays that bill in the other end on taxes? It's all of us. So we need to figure out how to make sure we're dealing with that. As we continue to retire later in life, you know, the more likelihood that we're not going to be as productive is just a fact. You can walk through any of the stores that have seniors working because they're not able to retire the lifestyle they want, and they're probably not as productive as they used to be. They're probably more productive than some of the younger guys that are there, but the reality is they're not as productive, and it's not their fault. I mean, we didn't design our life to be working at 70 or 75 doing retail. That just wasn't the plan, I promise you, right? So we need to deal with that. And then on the other side of that is it's really the quality of life. It's health span versus lifespan. As we live longer, we need to figure out how to be healthier, and no one makes the choice to be unhealthy. Sometimes it's genetics, sometimes it's knowledge, but a lot of the time it's just choices based on bad habits because we've never been taught. So we need to teach everybody how to do it differently. We need to teach people how to eat better, do the right things, behave better health-wise, do the right things to put yourself in the best possible position. Is there any questions before I jump to the next slide? Okay. So we talked about some of the things that we can do. I'm assuming all of you know who Harvard Business School is. They have a medical school as well, and they're pretty well recognized. They did this study for the countless benefits of physical activity. So remember when I said there's choices you can make? The first time I saw this slide, I almost literally had a heart attack because the ability to make changes in your life on the most simple, small level and have a huge impact on the quality of life is exponential. And so when we look at the physical activity, 15 minutes of moderate to intense physical activity a day can increase your lifespan by 3 years. Just 15 minutes a day. And you don't have to start off running, by the way. You could just start walking. You may not get 3 years, but you can start. That's the difference. You got to start somewhere. Active men and women stood to gain somewhere between 2 to 5%, 2 to 5 years more of lifespan, depending on how often they intensely they worked out. So if I work out better physically, more demanding and intense on my body, I'll live longer years and healthier years. And 30 to 40 minutes of jogging 5 days a week leads to the cellular age based on the telomeres, which is part of your DNA, of 9 years younger than the same person who doesn't run. If you think about that, your DNA is affected by your activity. The fact is your cell regeneration because of telomeres gives you the ability to be 9 years younger than most of your age. So has anybody gone to a high school or a college reunion and you walk in and you go, God, I feel really old. And then you look at the people around you and you go, wow, I don't really feel so old. No hair, we're heavy, we have massive wrinkles, all those things. Well, guess what? Our lifestyles have a major effect on our body. We can do these basic things and make that kind of change. We just need to start it like financial planning. The sooner you start it, the best day to start it was yesterday. The reality is you start as soon as you possibly can. So we look at physical activity. Now we look at general health. Adults who had 6 or more hours sitting in a chair or hours per day when not working were more likely to die 19%. That's kind of crazy. If you're not working and we're sitting in front of the TV for 6 hours or more, we're 19% more likely to die. That's kind of crazy. One of the things that we need to do is figure out how to generate our mindset to make us do things differently, right? We need to understand there's changes we can make that will have a huge impact on our lives. Cognitive, we talked about Alzheimer's, we talked about other things, but researchers found that more than 3 times a week, 30%, 34% less likely to be diagnosed with dementia for those who were less active than those who were less active, I should say. Researchers found that inactive adults were 44% more likely to experience depression. Think about the pandemic, right? How many people were depressed? Everybody, because everybody felt like they couldn't go anywhere. They couldn't see anybody. They couldn't do anything outside because they couldn't be around people. So that caused depression. If we would have been getting exercise, it may have helped some of that. But the reality is our mental state is as important as our physical state. In some cases more, because one feeds the other. If we look at our physical health is 41%. Well, actually, let me start on this side. Those who walked have a lower rate of heart disease by 27%. Pretty simple. Walking, you have a 27% less chance of having heart problems. 41% less likely to die of a heart attack, 30% less likely to die of any cause, and 18% less likely to die of cancer. That's kind of amazing if you think about it. If you're a runner, I wish I was, I'm not. I was never built to be a runner. But if you ran 7 hours, if you're running, I'm sorry, you add literally an hour spent running, adds 7 hours to your life. For every hour you spend, you get 3 years longer life than the average non-runner, and you get 40% lower risk of premature death. Again, I don't know about you, I'm not a runner, so I focus on all the others because I've got a fused left ankle and 5 screws and 2 plates in my right. So walking 10,000 steps a day is what I do. That's my thing. And I do that every day. And I've been doing it now for about 4 months. Do I hit it every day? No, but my goal every day is to hit 10,000. And what I will tell you is the difference between when I do it versus when I don't affects me in every part of my life. Any questions about that? No? Okie dokie. Move on. So we're going to talk about vitality, and we're going to talk about it in a couple of ways. We're going to talk about it as a concept. So the definition of vitality is the state of being strong and active and having energy. We're going to talk about it as a company. Vitality happens to be the second largest health data company in the world. They're a South African company. And the only one they're second to is Apple. Apple is the largest, and Vitality is one of their largest partners. They do a lot together because Apple collects health data. They analyze health data. They've been doing it forever, and they've been doing it in South Africa for years. Matter of fact, just as a little aside, the car insurances that, you put your little device in, and if you drive safe, you get a discount. Vitality is the company that came up with that in South Africa because of the laws of the country. They couldn't do something different, so they had to come up with a way to make it beneficial for others. And so by doing that, they've now created programs that are going worldwide. So when we talk about vitality, we're going to talk about the members, and we're the members. We are society, the people who are here. We're trying to be vital, have our own vitality. But we're also talking about if we had products and services that give me the vitality products. We've got better health incentives. So we're going to get incentivized to do the things that we're talking about doing. We can get a lower cost of insurance than people who don't. And we can provide more money towards our retirement, which is really cool. The secondary piece of that is an oh, by the way, we also have an ability to get people with diabetes, not all, but most people, some remnants of insurance, which most other companies can't do. We have an ability, we have a specific program for people with diabetes. So by members having health incentives that lower the cost of insurance and provide more money towards their retirement, it drives a healthy behavior. That healthy behavior helps the insurers, right? The insurance companies. Well, why do they care? They care because less of us die, there's fewer illnesses for claims, and they lower the claim level. By doing that, they can reduce our cost and give us more benefits. Well, what's the benefit to society of them doing that? If we have a healthier society, we've got improved productivity, and we've reduced our healthcare burden on our systems and our governments. So what we do, at the end of the day, we reward healthy living. We protect your family if you die too soon or live too long. We help families create tax advantage strategies. We help people generate wealth accumulation strategies. We protect against losses in the market. We do long-term care. We have supplemental retirement planning. At the end of the day, thank you for your time. If you take the next step, we'd love to help you. But if you haven't, if you don't want to use us, make sure you use somebody. Make sure you get a second look. Make sure you get an opinion, because you don't want to be like me when it happened to me. You don't want to be stuck without a plan. And I'm going to jump to here. One of the things that we do that's different than everybody else is we're actually building a community around fitness. We want to join. We have fitness challenges. We have fitness trainings. We have incentives for clients getting from bronze, gold, silver to platinum levels, which help reduce cost. We do a 5K twice a year that all the proceeds go to the Diabetes Foundation. So we're building a community around getting healthier and learning how to be wealthier in the same process. So thank you guys. I really appreciate you. If you've got any questions or information you'd like to get from us, our information is on the screen right now, and I look forward to hopefully speaking to some of you soon.
That was awesome. Thank you both. Yes, I see Dominique is clapping. Thank you both, Peggy. That was as Joe was talking, my mind went to, I think I mentioned Atomic Habits. That is a book that we're reading as an office.
Yes.
And just making small adjustments in your life, 2 minutes here and there over time, right? So this really fit well in with the book we're reading.
Awesome.
On so many levels. So I want to thank you both. And I know Michael is on, if I'm not mistaken, Michael's, and he wanted to say a few things.
Can you all hear me?
We can.
Okay. We've all heard the term health is wealth. So Peggy, Joe, Dominic, thank you for really bringing clarity around that whole. We've heard that topic noised about for quite some time in various circles. Health is wealth, but you all peel back the onion and see why that is the case with insurance companies, for example, charging you higher rates because of health challenges. So it's refreshing to see you all's concept have the health as well as the financial piece of it. So that was very enlightening on so many levels. So we are reading Atomic Habits as an office this month, and this just really is in line with that. And I like the fact that, Peggy, you started with y'all's why, the Meals on Wheels. Every good journey has a why. We do things in the housing space, and we each have a why, and we each ask our agents what's their why, so that they can really tie it back to why it is we do what we do. So thank you for advancing this conversation about your financial fitness as well as your health fitness. So we all can be better, and this conversation this evening will help us all be better. So thank you. We are internally grateful here for it. So for those that are registered, we will be sending this recording out. We will be revisiting this topic, because as we see an hour to talk about something as important as your life it's not nearly enough time, right? So we will be circling back on this and giving
spitball.
Yeah, another dive at this important life lesson. So thank you both for giving us your piece of your evening, and thank you for those that tuned in. And again, we will be sending the recording out to all those that may have registered and missed it, or just couldn't find it in their schedule to attend. So thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing us.
Thank you for the opportunity.